Guys, if you're still on the fence about a supercharged 3800 Pontiac Fiero, then I've got a few more damn good reasons to help you stop dilly-dallying and get after it. Next.
Toys for Life.
Let's just start with the most compelling reason. The acceleration is absolutely insane and it sounds wicked. Just a couple of hard launches to whet your appetite so that you get a taste of what the supercharged 3800 Fiero is capable of. And if you're just driving down the road and you need a little back adjustment, drop her into second and hammer it, and you can save yourself a trip to the chiropractor. And one more view from the rear, because why not? And make no mistake, the 3800 Supercharged Fiero is good at more than just... It's a load of fun if you take it to the drag strip, which is the only place you should drag race. And today we're lined up against the Cadillac CTS. Oh, it's not looking good for that big black chariot. But can the 3800 Supercharged be civilized when you need it to be? And is it efficient? Is it reliable? The answers are yes and yes. And oh, it sounds pretty awesome too. And it just happens to be a torque monster. I've got to stop doing that. Did I mention it's a torque monster? Check this out. What about handling? Well, the 3800 Supercharged Fiero is still relatively light, even with that big V6. It's small, nimble. Let's just let the video speak for itself. Most of the attributes of the 3800 Supercharged Pontiac Fiero that we just walked through are fairly subjective in nature. Let's switch gears for just a moment and talk about some objective facts that really shine a light on why the Supercharged 3800 Pontiac Fiero is so much fun. I've done a couple of relatively simple mods to my 3800 Supercharged that bump its power output up from the stock 240 horsepower to somewhere around 380 horsepower at the crank. The mods are relatively simple and consist of a free-flowing intake, an exhaust, a ZZ Performance VS camshaft. Guys, just a quick ask. Videos like this take quite a bit of work. If you're getting something out of the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up. A switch to 85 fuel, which allows you to move to a much smaller 2.8-inch pulley, which in turn substantially ups the boost, and of course, an E85 compatible fuel pump, along with 60-pound injectors to properly support the E85 fuel. I also went ahead and had the stock transmission rebuilt at the same time it was pulled from the donor vehicle because it was pretty tired. I had my builder just go ahead and take care of the weaknesses that become known in these transmissions through the years, and that's it. Nothing special, no expensive parts, and everything is still readily available today. For a stall converter, I went with pretty much stock, but it effectively ends up being a little bit looser than stock because it's now attached to a 380 horsepower supercharged engine. So now let's talk about some real-world objective numbers and some comparisons that illustrate exactly why the supercharged 3800 Fiero is such a blast to drive. A stock V6 Fiero weighs in at a relatively light 2,700 pounds and has 135 horsepower, giving you a non-inspiring 20 pounds of weight for every single horsepower. A 20-year-old C5 Corvette weighs in at 3,250 pounds and has 350 horsepower. This gives you a much better 9.28 pounds for each horsepower you have to move. How about a 2021 Chevy Camaro with the LT1 V8? It has 455 horsepower, weighs 3,685 pounds for a slightly better power to weight ratio of 8.1 pounds per horsepower. Decent for sure, but we can do better with the 3800 Supercharged Fiero. This Supercharged 3800 as modified puts out around 380 horsepower and weighs in at 2,850 pounds for a very nimble 7.5 pounds per horsepower. Just for fun, the 2021 C8 Corvette, which just happens to be the second mid-engine mass-produced car GM has offered, does come in at better than the Supercharged 3800 Fiero. It weighs 3,366 pounds and has 495 horsepower for a power-to-weight ratio of 6.8 pounds per horsepower. Slightly better than the Supercharged 3800 Fiero, but at a cost of at least 80 grand. At the end of the day, the point is take a relatively lightweight mid-engine car like the Pontiac Fiero, triple its horsepower, and that factor, more than any other part of the equation, is what really cranks up the fun factor. And one last thing, in a sea of cars almost 40 years after its conception, the Pontiac Fiero is still unique and modern looking. And honestly, when is the last time you saw one out on the road?